What if a powerful regime, one that's been entrenched for decades, could be brought to its knees in a single morning? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. We're diving deep into the story of Operation Decisive Decapitation.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The date is Saturday, February 28th, 2026. For Iran, this is actually the start of their work week, and it also happens to fall during the sacred month of Ramadan. But this day was going to be anything but ordinary.
And where does all this go down? Right in the heart of it all, Tehran. You know, this is the absolute nerve center of the Islamic Republic, the place where its most powerful leaders live and work. Then, the clock hits 9:27 in the morning. And at that exact moment, everything changes. And believe me, that timing was no accident. It was calculated down to the second for maximum devastating impact. Because this right here was the moment. The moment a 37-year rule was brought to a sudden, violent end. We're talking about the supreme leader and, with him, the entire command structure of the regime. Gone, just like that. So the big question is, how? How could something like this even happen? Let's break down the anatomy of this incredibly high-stakes strike. All right, first things first, we need to get our heads around this term, a decapitation strike. Think of it like this. You're not trying to conquer a whole country. Instead, you're surgically removing the leadership, the head, so to speak. The idea is that without its head, the rest of the body, the government, the military, it just can't function. It is a massive gamble for sure. High risk, but also incredibly high reward.
Okay, so why this specific morning? Why not the night before or a week later? Well, it all boiled down to a single piece of intelligence, an opportunity that was just too good to pass up.
You know, this was the absolute intelligence jackpot, a perfect storm. Joint US and Israeli intel confirmed that a super critical meeting was happening right now. And get this, not only was the supreme leader there, but so were about 10 of his top military and political counselors. We're not talking about some low-level briefing. This was the entire upper echelon of the regime, all in one place at one time. That almost never happens. The opportunity was so insane, they actually scrapped a different plan for a nighttime raid and fast-tracked this one to the front of the line. It had to happen, and it had to happen now. So that's the trigger. That one piece of intel lights the fuse on the operation itself. And let me tell you, this wasn't just a couple of jets. Oh no. This was a massive, fully coordinated assault aimed right at the heart of the regime, designed to be completely overwhelming.
It was basically a two-pronged attack. You had Israel running Operation Decisive Decapitation. Their job was laser-focused on Tehran, take out the leadership, the key ministries, basically remove the government's ability to operate. At the exact same time, the US launched Operation Epic Fury. This was much broader, hitting strategic targets all over the country. We're talking nuclear projects, missile sites, air defenses. So it's like Israel took out the brain while the US took out the arms. Coordinated and devastating. And the scale here, it's just mind-boggling. Just try to picture this. 200 Israeli aircraft hitting 500 distinct locations. And the Supreme Leader's compound? It got hit with 30 separate munitions. 30! This was not a warning shot. This was a knockout punch, plain and simple. And the effect? Total devastation. In just a few moments, the central fortress of the entire regime was turned into nothing more than smoldering debris. And here's the critical detail. Intel suggested that while the leader had gone underground for safety, he hadn't made it to his main, super-reinforced bunker. That one mistake left him completely exposed when the whole world came crashing down on top of him. But it wasn't just about the supreme leader. The mission's success was just total. The list of who was taken out reads like a who's who of the Iranian regime. You've got their top security guy, the commander of the Revolutionary Guard, the main architect of their missile program, the chief of intelligence. I mean, everyone. The head of the snake wasn't just bruised, it was completely cut off. When all was said and done, the final count is just staggering. 40. 40 of the regime's highest-ranking officials, all eliminated in a single morning. The command and control structure wasn't just damaged, it was completely annihilated. Okay, so the military strike is over. Now the story shifts to what's happening on the ground in Iran. And what we see immediately is this incredible split, a tale of two completely different reactions. From Washington, the message was, as you might expect, pretty clear and triumphant. President Trump basically called it an inevitable outcome of modern warfare, saying that one of history's most malevolent figures just couldn't hide from today's tracking systems. And you heard a very similar tune coming from Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu confirmed the total demolition of the compound, and he made it a point to highlight that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing, but the result of months of collaborative planning with the U.S. But inside Iran itself, that's where things get really interesting. You had this bizarre split-screen reality. On the one hand, official state TV was broadcasting these scenes of, choreographed public grief and mourning. But on the other hand, you had real, independent footage leaking out showing the complete opposite. People in the streets, laughing, cheering, celebrating the regime's downfall. So all of this brings us to the aftermath. The head of the snake is gone, and now the entire axis it controlled is starting to crumble. It's truly the end of an era and the beginning of a very, very uncertain future. And just to put the sheer magnitude of this into perspective, think about the timeline. The Islamic Republic itself was founded back in 1979. This one man, the supreme leader, takes power in 1989. And then bam! In 2026, his 37-year rule is over in a flash of fire and ruin. And it pushes this 47-year-old republic right to the edge of collapse. The result? An immediate total power vacuum. The Revolutionary Guard's command shattered. A successor? Nope, nobody was clearly designated. So for the first time in nearly half a century, the Islamic Republic is facing a genuine existential crisis. The architect of their entire axis of resistance is just gone. And that leaves us with one final huge question. With the architect of this whole system now entombed in the very fortress he built to protect himself, what on earth happens now to the world and all the conflicts that he spent decades building?